as I have mentioned, is a think tank. We are mainly doing energy security, sustainable development, and energy poverty research. We also support government in the process of energy sector reforms, which is ongoing in the framework of the EU integration and association agreement, which is very common framework for Eastern Partnership member states, and I'm sure we are all aware of this framework. Last year, I had an opportunity to apply for the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum Fellowship. I wanted to use this opportunity to advance my research experience. I already had an experience on working different energy poverty related research with many experienced experts. For this case, I collaborated with Ute Dubois from the Paris International Business School. She was my mentor during this process. And our main goal was to somehow conceptualize the energy poverty status in Georgia, because as you know, energy poverty is a very new topic for Georgia and Eastern Partnership countries. We do not have many research in this regard. We do not have many data, and considering all these challenges, we somehow wanted to find out what are the main determinants of energy poverty in Georgia, what are the consequences of energy poverty, and how should we approach the issue of measuring energy poverty in Georgia, because as we will see later, measuring energy poverty is really country-specific issue, and we need to know very well what are the national characteristics of energy poverty in any particular country. Otherwise, we will not be able to promote targeted policies to eliminate it. So our main task was to kind of give this first comprehensive review of energy poverty in Georgia and support it with existing data and research. To say a few words on what energy poverty is, you can see it on the slide, but in a short description, energy poverty is a lack of availability of energy sources, affordable and clean energy sources, which are necessary for households to receive energy services in a way that it is not harmful for their health. We know that energy poverty is an important aspect of sustainable development goals, because many people around the world, and especially in global south, do not have access to electricity, clean cooking, and other related services. On the other hand, in the Western European countries, the issue of energy poverty is also very popular, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when energy tariffs increased in the EU member states. And in these states, in the EU, and especially in the Western European countries, energy poverty is always linked with these high energy tariffs, lack of energy efficiency of buildings, and income. So this kind of are two main directions of energy poverty. One which is more severe, which is related to access to electricity and clean energy sources, and another one which is related to affordability problem and related aspects. By the way, this energy poverty is often described as a fuel poverty as well, especially in case of UK, for example, which had the huge experience on working on energy poverty research. So in Georgia and in Eastern Partnership countries, we have both kind of energy poverty, let's say, because even though we do not have problems with access to electricity, we still have problems in Georgia, and I'm sure in many other Eastern European countries, related to access to clean energy sources. And when I'm talking about clean energy sources, I mean the sources that are not harmful for health. On this graph, you can see the complexity of energy poverty. On the left side, there are causes of energy poverty, and you can see how many aspects can have effect on energy poverty, and on the other hand, what energy poverty can cause. So considering all these complexities and the impacts on education system, health system, economic development of the country, it is very important to view this issue in a systemic manner and to try to correctly diagnose it and then develop respective mitigation policies. Now to move on to Georgia, I'm sure you are already know this, but Georgia is a small country. It's an upper middle income country in the South Caucasus. Georgia applied for EU membership in 2022 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which created opportunity for countries, association member countries, to apply for the EU membership, and it was granted candidate status in a year later in 2023. And I'm saying this because this makes energy poverty framework more popular in national policy level, because, as you know, we are now in the process of transposing all European directives in the energy sector and in many other sectors, of course, but in energy direction, we are working on market liberalization, energy efficiency, introduction of renewable energy sources, improving the legal framework on energy poverty as well. So all these aspects are related to household energy consumption and the existing practices. So these processes are really guided from the EU integration process, and after receiving the status of the candidate country, we are expecting that this process will be even more intensive, and we also want to support our governments through our research to be prepared in terms of this EU association and EU accession process. Now to say a few words regarding fuels and technologies used by households in Georgia, which have effect on energy poverty and are an important part of energy poverty, because, as I have mentioned, the three main components, which is usually discussed throughout the energy poverty. This is energy markets and energy tariffs, energy efficiency of buildings, and these affordability problems. So as you probably know, Georgia has almost no fossil fuel resources on its territory. 80% of our energy consumption is imported. We import gas from Azerbaijan and a small share from Russia. And our main domestic energy sources are hydropower and biomass. So these generally are renewable energy sources, but in terms of biomass, we have this problem that biomass is usually used in a traditional, inefficient wood stoves that are really harmful for health and well-being of the population, because the way this biomass is burned, this wood, is really damaging for health. And this is a huge problem because almost 35% of Georgian households, and these are mainly rural households, rely on biomass for heating and a small share for cooking as well. Another characteristic in terms of energy poverty and technologies is relating to the heating system. So we know that in the Soviet era, there were district heating facilities available, energy was really cheap, and the energy efficiency of building was not a priority. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Georgia did not maintain its district heating facilities. So now all households in Georgia are dependent on individual heating systems. With this, I mean that these are individual heating units or individual systems, central systems at an apartment level. So we do not have district heating practices and practices of collective purchase of electricity. And this has effects on how households use energy and what energy services they are getting. Because due to these individual heating facilities, households are not able to fully heat their homes or heat the spaces they usually use in winter. They usually heat only 1 or 2 rooms, and bedrooms are not heated during the winter, especially in rural areas. And this is, of course, very problematic in terms of health, in terms of comfort, and etc. Because many studies suggest that living in cold homes and indoor air pollution, which is caused by fuel wood consumption, is associated to many cardiovascular and related diseases. And also we do not have the statistics in terms of energy poverty and the related associated deaths or morbidity or mortality, but still this it can be assumed that this is a big problem, and not only for households but also for schools and kindergartens as well, because in many rural areas the main source of heating for schools are these inefficient traditional wood stoves. Regarding the energy efficiency of buildings, which is also an important component of energy poverty, as I have mentioned, Georgia's housing stock is mainly developed in the Soviet era, when energy saving was not a priority of the government, because energy was available for free or for very low cost. And this resulted in a case when many buildings are not energy efficient, and Georgia adopted the mandatory energy efficiency standards only last year. So on the graph here and on the table, you can see that less than 6% of buildings have insulated external walls, floors, or ceilings. So these buildings are really inefficient, which leads to let me move to the back. Another cause of energy poverty, which is related to high energy expenditure and high socioeconomic vulnerability of the population. So when we are talking about energy tariffs, it should be highlighted that energy tariffs are not high in Georgia. On the contrary, they are subsidized. This is due to the government policy to make energy affordable for the whole population. And also there are practices that when the households are able to go to the nearby forests and cut down trees they need for their to heat their homes and etc. But now when we are in the process of introducing sustainable forest management practices and energy market liberalization, which should lead in competitive prices, this component might become more problematic as well. So when these high energy tariffs become an issue, and on the other side we have these inefficient building stocks which already require a lot of money to acquire substantial energy services, we might have different problems and harder problems in terms of energy affordability. So the 4 main causes of energy poverty in Georgia, to sum up, is this inefficient building stock, high socioeconomic vulnerability of the population, many large share of population which is dependent on individual heating facilities and which causes underheating problem, and wood burning in inefficient wood stoves, which leads to indoor air pollution. Now, as I have already mentioned, this kind of characteristics makes Georgia a bit different from Western European countries, where access to clean energy sources and underheating is not that much of a problem, because main problem there is an affordability and energy efficiency of buildings. But in Georgia and in other Western European, Eastern European countries, I guess, and Eastern Partnership countries have different problems. This is lack of access to clean energy sources and regional disparities. I would like to say a few words regarding these regional disparities, because I'm sure this is a case for other Eastern Partnership countries as well. In Georgia, there are huge differences between Tbilisi, the capital city, and other regions in terms of access to clean energy and other services. Here on the map, you can see these differences. So these are percentages of households who have access to clean energy sources, and these really are very different in terms of regions. And another vulnerability is also related to unemployment rate, share of population receiving old age pension, because we know that these groups are vulnerable groups who need additional support. They are more vulnerable in terms of living in cold homes as well. So that's why it is very important to know all these vulnerabilities in the country, not just at the national level, but at the regional level as well, because like Georgia, maybe in other countries, it's also a problem when someone has access to more energy sources or other kind of services and someone does not. So these social vulnerabilities for Georgia is one of the main components of energy poverty. And you can see here on the graph that in general, almost 20% of Georgian population is receiving these cash transfers under the social assistance programs. So almost 20% of the population is living under the relative poverty line. This is really high number compared to the even Eastern European countries. So to say a few words again on the health impacts that are related to cooking with wood and underheating. This is very well proven by many different research papers and studies that it really has a very harmful effect, especially on elderly people, young children, and people with health conditions who need to stay home the whole time. And this effect on young children are particularly sensitive, of course. In Georgia, we also have this problem which is related to living in one small room during the whole winter period, because when households only can heat one room, it means that everyone is crowded in this one room. And when I'm talking about everyone, this is 4 or 5 people. These are children who have to do their homework. These are elderly people who are watching TV, or parents who are cooking dinner. So all these activities are happening maybe in a 1 or 2 small rooms, which is really not comfortable, but also has effect on education and etc. So coming to the end, what we did under this study is kind of a try to recommend how should we approach the issue of measuring energy poverty in Georgia. So what we saw is that the indicators which are used at the EU level, these are mainly expenditure-based indicators, might not be quite comparable and useful for Georgia, because as we saw, we have the huge problem of underheating. So this underheating and lack of access to clean energy sources should be included in the measurement of energy poverty in Georgia. And this, we think that this requires development of a specific measurement framework of energy poverty in Georgia. And I would be also interested in your opinion if we have participants from other Eastern European countries. I think this should be the case other Eastern European countries as well, Eastern Partnership countries as well. We will later hear Andrei's presentation and the specificities of Ukraine. But I know that in Armenia and in Moldova as well, there are problems with access to clean energy sources, using the firewood, underheating, and etc. So these countries should, we think, develop their own energy poverty measurement framework. And to say a few words regarding the recommendations on how to address energy poverty on the example of Georgia. Georgian government has many schemes to support vulnerable households in terms of cash transfers, energy subsidies, and etc. But what we are missing is the long-term measures that can address the root causes of energy poverty in the country. Of course, these cash transfers and support schemes are very important for low-income households who cannot afford their immediate energy needs. But if we do not introduce better support schemes in terms of access to clean energy sources or buildings renovation, this money is kind of a lost money, because it does not make the situation better in the long term. So we are advising and recommending to start thinking on introducing long-term measures to support energy poverty. And these long-term measures at the beginning can be very low-cost measures to improve energy efficiency of households, or even give information how to approach the issue, how can they improve the energy efficiency of their homes. So what are the appliances and technologies that require less energy, that might be affordable for ordinary households? This kind of advisory support is very important, and we have seen and know from the experience of other countries that the first step in terms of eliminating energy poverty is exactly this kind of awareness raising and advisory support that gives the population information on what the problem is. Because in Georgia, for example, many households are not even aware why these fuel wood or traditional wood stoves are harmful for their health, because it's a common technology, they are used to it, and not many people know the effects it might have on their health or on their children's education, and etc. And of course, we think that diagnosing of energy poverty is really important for developing targeted policy measures, because as we have seen, if we do not know who are the most vulnerable people in the process, the policymakers might not be able to develop the respective policies. So this is then a very important role of research organizations and civil society organizations to work more on researching energy poverty and advising on better ways to include it in the policy documents. So to say a last word, what we did in Georgia based on this and other research is that we advised government to include energy poverty in the National Energy Policy document. The National Energy Policy document also has the annex to it, which is National Energy and Climate Plan. It also gives us the target of energy poverty reduction and includes all the measures that could be used. We are still working in advising government on how to improve these documents, but first steps are already made in Georgia. We have this policy description of energy poverty and definition of poverty, energy poverty included in the national policy document. This is the first time when this term energy poverty is officially included in this kind of a document. And now government is also starting working on its building renovation strategy, long-term strategy of building renovation, where in terms of your requirements, special emphasis should be made on energy poverty and energy poor households. So it is really important that we know beforehand who are the most vulnerable in terms of energy poverty and which groups should be included in this kind of measures at a first step. So that's the very brief and general overview of energy poverty in Georgia. We will be glad to hear your opinions. Or do you see any similarities in your country regarding of energy poverty, or if you have any specific questions? And after that, we will move on and we will give floor to Andrii from Ukraine, who will give this his perspective, and will describe the situation in Ukraine in terms of energy poverty. And I'm sure that we will see a lot of similarities with both of our countries. Thank you for listening. Now I will stop sharing my screen and will answer your questions, or let's move on to Andrii's presentation. Okay,
thank you,
Andrii. Yes, maybe.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Andrii Ursta. I am energy market analyst at Dixie Group, which is Ukrainian energy policy think tank engaged in consultation on the energy policy matters, including energy security, development of energy markets, as well as protection of customer rights on energy markets. And I'm going to give the general overview of the energy poverty problematics in Ukraine, as well as some updates which may affect this issue and which are related to Russian full-scale aggression and its after effects. So some general information on macroeconomic indicators, as well as some social economic vulnerabilities that may affect the issue of energy poverty. So the GDP of Ukraine was equal to $200 billion as of 2021, but given the Russian aggression and its economic consequences, the estimated GDP, real GDP, contracted by 29.1% in 2022, but in 2023, mild increase in real GDP took place by almost 5%. GDP per capita is only available for 2021, and it was equal to $4,800. number of refugees were, as of December 2023, was equal to 5.9 million people. So it's estimated numbers, as well as the number of internally displaced people was equal to 3.7 million people, which is one of the main vulnerability groups, which is also experience energy poverty due to lower incomes and higher unemployment rate than those unemployment rate that are average in Ukraine. Nevertheless, even in Ukraine as a whole, the unemployment rate grew as well. It almost tripled if compared to 2021, which also contributes to vulnerability of the household and consequently to the issue of energy poverty. Poverty estimates, which are given by different international organizations, they are as follows. World Bank estimated that monetary poverty in Ukraine increased to 24.1% in 2022. The UNICEF focused on the children poverty, which according to their survey and study almost doubled from 43 to 82% compared to 2021. And also as of January 2023, 61% of elderly women and 46% of elderly men could not afford to meet basic needs, energy services and products being one of them. So if we speak about the problem of energy poverty in Ukraine before war, there were not the metrics or methodology for calculating energy poor households, as for example is required by regulation on NECP. Yet some indicators were collected and published by the State Statistics Service of Ukraine, which may give some hint on the scope of the problem in Ukraine. One of them is the household survey, which among indicators have the share of people who cannot afford to keep their household warm. And as of the latest available survey of 2021, the share of such households constituted 70.2%, which is much higher than average indicators in the European Union countries. Nevertheless, some downward trend can be observed if compared to the previous period. Yet one may assume that this share in the circumstances of Russia's full-scale invasion may be bigger, and we will talk about this somewhat later. The other possible indicator to which may help to observe energy poverty, maybe estimated, is the share of housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels in total expenditures of Ukrainian households. As of 2021, this indicator was equal to 15.2%. Since 2017, there were also the general trend on mild reduction of the share. The quite drastic increase, which may be observed in 2014 and 2017. The main reason for that was the gradual increase in regulated energy prices by the government. But as we can see in the further periods, the share in general steadily decreased, except for 2021, when the energy crisis all across Europe kicked in, and also took place in Ukraine. Besides, energy community gave its pre-war assessment of energy poverty in Ukraine. They based on the 2019 data on the share of households that cannot afford to keep their homes adequately warm. Also, they looked at the household that both overspent or underspent on the energy services and energy products, and also took these households in the assessment of energy poor households. And according to them, the share of energy poor households in Ukraine as of 2019 ranged from 13% to 18% of all households, and this percentage implies that there were between 1.9 to 2.6 million energy poor households in Ukraine. If we speak about the problem of energy poverty in circumstances of war, there are some reasons to assume that the problem deteriorated. One of them is already mentioned socioeconomic vulnerabilities, which become a bigger issues given the general downturn trend in Ukrainian economy due to Russian aggression. And the second major factor contributing to energy poverty in times of war is Russian attacks on energy infrastructure that affect the accessibility to utilities, not only in the areas directly affected by the hostilities, but also in the country in general. To be more specific, due to Russian attacks on energy infrastructure, the number of settlements without electricity supply ranged in different periods from 1,500 to from 500 to 1,500. If we speak in terms of number of customers that were deprived of the electricity supply due to hostilities, in some periods the numbers may reach 300,000 customers, both household and non-household. Also, it should be noted that this visualization doesn't include the non-accessibility of electricity due to scheduled interruptions of supply, which were applied in early 2023 due to the general deficit in energy system, which were also related and caused by Russian attacks on both generation electricity capacity and transmission capacities. So these interruptions, they were applied all over the country and affected all the regions, even those which wasn't directly affected by war and hostilities, even the western parts of the country. If we speak to about the access to gas supply, this problem was more limited in geographic scale primarily by the areas which were affected by the hostilities or were located in vicinity to these hostilities. Yet the number of the household which didn't have access to gas in some period were quite significant, reaching 600,000 in the end of 2022. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Energy stopped publishing the statistics in 2023. That is why we don't have public information on the number of customers without gas supply in this year. What are existing policies in Ukraine to alleviate or somewhat mitigate energy poverty in our country? So first of all, it should be noted that there is no specific policy dedicated to energy poverty per se. Yet some of the policy measures are in full or in part are aimed to mitigate some of the negative consequences of energy poverty in Ukraine. One of them is energy prices regulation, which was reintroduced for gas sector in 2022 in the form of the public service obligation regime. The PSO for electricity was in force even before the outbreak of the full-scale invasion. If we speak about tariffs for heating, they are also regulated and non-cost reflective, and this fact also causes problem in the heating sector because the district heating supply companies cannot cover all of their operational costs, including costs for fuel and maintenance of their equipment. This way of protecting energy poor households from rising energy prices is not effective because it causes problems in the other sectors of energy. It accumulates debts, which are only growing in the circumstances of war. That is why there is discussion in Ukraine about the gradual increase of the final energy prices to make them more cost effective and to stop this debt accumulation. The other policy measure applied to compensate for rising energy prices and energy poverty is subsidies for paying utility bills. As of 2023, the budget allocation for these purposes were equal to almost 50 billion hryvnias, which is approximately 1.2 billion euros. The subsidy is non-refundable cash assistance for the purpose of supporting low-income families. And as of 2022, the average number of subsidy recipients were almost 2 million households, which in general coincide with the estimates of the energy community, but not necessarily reflect not necessarily only energy poor household benefit from these subsidies. So in this, it's one of the problem of the scheme. So amount of subsidies depends on total monthly household income, as well as on the prices for energy and utility services to include the price risks. Other policy measure which is related to energy poverty is the financing of energy efficiency measures. If we compare the volume of these measures and financing with the subsidies that are allocated, it can be inferred that this financing is not sufficient. The only active state program for supporting energy efficiency measures as of now is Energodim, which as of January 2024 supported 652 projects. The total cost of project is equal to 6.800 billion hryvnias, which, if compared to the subsidies, is not even comparable. And actually allocated cost is even less, and equal to 1.9 billion hryvnias. So the energy efficiency measures and their financing, that is certainly the issue to be issue to work on in order to reduce the number of the energy poor households in Ukraine. Also, Ukrainian government and parliament has implemented some additional measures in circumstances of war to additionally protect these households from possible risks of rising tariffs. So one of them is legislative bans on raising some of the energy tariffs, namely heat supply tariffs as well as gas distribution. This ban is still in force. The second measure is legislative ban on terminating energy supply disconnection of energy consumers from for debts. This measure was introduced in March 2022, and in January 2024 it was much narrowed in scope, because earlier it was applied to all household consumers, while now it is only applied to those households that are directly affected by war, so the which reside in the areas where hostilities take place. And also there were legislative ban on accruing fines and penalties for energy debts. So any debts that were accrued by households were not penalized by additional fines. And before January 2022, this ban was also applicable all over Ukraine for all households, but now it is also narrowed only to the households which reside in the areas affected by war. So what are existing gaps and efficiency in energy policy, energy poverty policy? One of them is lack of defined criteria of energy poverty, because as of now, all indicators that were mentioned in my presentation, they indicators that may give hint about the scope of the problem, but more elaborate methodology is needed to have more precise numbers and understanding of the scope of the problem. So this is issue to be resolved by NSCP, which is being developed now. The draft NSCP that was published doesn't contain such methodology and doesn't contain consequently the estimated number of households experiencing energy poverty. The second problem is lack of targets in energy poverty alleviation. So the draft NSCP contains such target. If I'm not mistaken, it is 7.9% of energy poor household. So this threshold should not be exceeded. But as long as the NSCP is not formally adopted, we don't have such target in energy poverty. The third problem is lack of comparable data on state of play and consequences of energy poverty. This is the problem which is related to State Statistics Service of Ukraine inter alia, because our state authority stopped updating the bulk of data on economy and on the economy of households. And this certainly precludes the assessment of the problem and its scope. Moreover, more efforts should be aimed at ensuring the comparability of data on Ukrainian households with those data which is gathered by which is collected by Eurostat. The first problem, policy problem, is the lack of concept of vulnerable customers in Ukrainian legislation. Both market laws on electricity and gas market require the development of such concept with the list of measures to be applied with respect to such vulnerable customers. But as of now, these concepts are still not adopted. There were the draft concept for electricity supply, but as far as I know, it is still not finally adopted by the government. Another problem is lack of targeted support measures, because many measures which were mentioned earlier by me is not selective. They are applicable to all households, whether they need this support or not. And this, as I said, causes problems on energy markets in general, while not necessarily protecting all households that experience energy poverty. Another problem is funding for energy efficiency, which is much lower than those funding that is allocated for subsidies. And the last problem is the desperate need for energy market reform to make energy prices cost reflective, and thus to incentivize the households to participate in the programs of energy efficiency, because in circumstances of price regulation, most of energy efficiency measures will not bring the payback in terms that are desirable for our customers, and rendering these energy efficiency measures not that appealing to our customers. That is why the prices should be increased, and such increase already is taking place, because in electricity sector in 2023 government has raised regulated electricity price for household, but these prices still doesn't reflect the realities of energy markets in wholesale energy markets in Ukraine. That's it on my part. Thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you, Andrii. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive overview.